This is a follow-up from the last one. It's the same session or the same day. I've just brought it all the way to 1 PM because I look back at Forex Factory and there's news at 1:30, so you should be able to get some sort of movement. But if you remember, we left off here, and it does seem that it did go all the way up to where we wanted it to go up, being this next daily level after hitting this daily level. Just the cycle of levels, right? So if that's the case, we might be able to get a move back down to here before we go higher. So that's exactly what we'd be looking for. If we go into the 15-minute time frame, see what's going on. So we closed the higher. So if we've closed the higher, we can get to here at the very least. There is a fair value up here. You can also see what's happening in that. And that's kind of what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking for a short in this time, down to this range, to then proceed the price action upwards. Let me just go rid of this. This is from today's session. Okay. Right. Okay, if we see here, we have closed the higher, so this could still hold. But if you remember back from the last video, if it's already tested and held here, there's no reason why this needs to hold again. It still can, because that's kind of how levels work. It will kind of magnet towards that actual fair value gap of the range, of the whole entire range. But you've got this small range here, so the next one to hold would be here. So let's take a look what's happened here. Plus the low for this move is here. This has gone, this hasn't. So if we think price can still go down and this is gone and this hasn't, we could target this. Reason why I'm looking at this high and this low different to this high and this low, because you're probably thinking, well, if this goes, then why am I no longer thinking we're going to go to here? Because we already hit target now, so if target's here, we should flip direction down. So you're just kind of looking for things that could make sense to kind of aid in your bias of this bringing price to this. So let's look what happens here. Move up, clearly spikes into something with that handle. We have came down to the bottom of the range. Lowest fair value gap being here. I would just move it to this because we have a gap here. So we could do this. Now if this doesn't hold, this is the first sign of this sweeping, bringing price below here and continuing that movement down. Don't need this anymore. We'll keep that. Cool, so we broke below this gap. Close the low here. Meaning now we could get price movement back up to here and it could go down. We also haven't swept this shot, so this can still be a possibility. Cool. Trade into the highest gap. As you can see, there's no gaps. If it's going off of here, it's an aggressive move down, which in this candle you can see it is. Now you've swept here, you can still come up before you go down. That's a possibility. Backtest this daily again, and if this low's gone here, this little range could be tested into, as this was the range I held off of this, which is created of holding this daily, meaning we could come up to this range before we go. Comes off this 15-minute gap being the highest gap on the way down, the only gap, sorry, on the 15-minute, meaning this will flip the direction momentarily if we think we can still go down, meaning looking for a long here wouldn't be the worst idea, but I would also rather you use a bait range, something like this. So we get here and we came down to here and then we held that and then we had something like that, and then you could enter this to go higher. I wouldn't just say, okay, it's going to hold, flip direction up. If you think direction's down, why would you see one thing and go, okay, I know direction's going to flip momentarily. Let me just get into here, because there's nothing saying that this is going to hold you up. Okay, so we got here. So the first thing I'd already be looking at and would try would be the midpoint of this candle. Let me just get rid of these levels. And it went to exactly where I said it should go to, be in this range. Also swept the high in the process, coming back to that daily and the gap, failing the midpoint of it again, meaning if this is holding, I would have my stop loss here, you should have it here. If this is holding, at the very least we should be able to get to here, right? Stop this out, and then went. So that's just absolutely unlucky one, to be honest. Everything was correct there, just didn't realise and I completely forgot that there was 130 news as well. Unlucky. That's just a situation where you're completely right and stops you out, which happens a lot to me as well. I know it happens to both of you, but it does happen to me all the time. Right in direction, just get stopped out. That's fair enough. But why wouldn't you, if you're still convinced on that, why wouldn't you just try again after it's swept? Because if it's sweeping here now, it's going to break here. You've kind of had that double sweep. Why can't you just get a re-entry to take it down? Cool. Continue. Now we've broken down here. Could get that move up, back up to the 130 candle. If not, broke that next low, so I'd no longer be looking at this range, I'd be looking at this range now, because we haven't hit our targets yet. So if it does come up to here, I'm not thinking, oh, but this might not hold because it needs to come up to here still. It doesn't need to come up to here anymore, because now we've closed here. We can use this range to bring us down. So we've come up to that range. Only fair value gap in the range is here. Holding that range. I'd also look at what's happening at the midpoint of this wick. It is closing. Is there anything else you can look at? Yeah, you got the bearish order block as well. But we have a swing here. If we're assuming price is going down, we're looking at that 46 swing as what's going to take us down. So in this candle here, I would be looking at this to take price down to that low now, this low here, because we're holding this. There's no reason why we have to hold and test everything in the range. There's no reason why we have to come all the way up here before we say, okay, that's enough, we're now going to go down. We're holding this. What's suggesting to us that it's holding? We found the midpoint of this wick, we found the midpoint of this fair value gap. What I mean by that is we didn't close the midpoint of this wick or this fair value gap. So that's already enough telling you that that's not holding. Oh, sorry, that's not breaking. And it is holding. So I'll take that, trying to target here. Let's get rid of some of this stuff, we know it's on the screen. Down, now you can break even. Close the midpoint of this order block, so there's no reason why we can't now go to this low. straight to that low, and I would have been stopped out. Normally what I do is, if I'm looking for more out of the trade, I will let it go down, and then I will trail to my initial target, and if it comes up to stop me out for that, that's fine, because that's exactly where I would have been stopped out. So it would have stopped out for 7.11 now. Go to some of these levels. We still haven't got to our target, right? So why can't we get a re-entry? And what was I saying last time, or last video, is if you get a trade that good, something like 7.11, why wouldn't you take a re-entry to maybe get another good trade? All you're doing is risking 1R of the 7 that you just got. Closed here. Do have this inversion fair value gap we can test into. We have the 15-minute fair value gap, which is about to turn inversion. If it didn't here, I think it already turned inversion actually. I don't want to spoil it by going on the 15. Okay, we can still get up to here. And straight down it. Clearly there was like something at 2 PM on this day. Some reason deleted the Forex Factory tab, so I can't look at that anymore. Oh well. Okay, so now if that's gone, we've hit the first target. This is the first target. That could potentially flip direction back up to here, but we want the actual target being down here. So we're just kind of seeing what's going to happen at this PDR. We go back 2 candles as well, so we can look at the 15-minute. Bunch of lows here. We broke out this range. If this range isn't going to hold, here's the thing, right? In the moment, this range here, if I think this is going to take us to here, I'm not even looking at this range as something to hold. So looking at these lows to sweep and go higher, I'm not even considering. Because if I think this is taking us to here, well, why the hell do I care about these lows, or why do I care about the order book in this range? It doesn't mean anything to me. If anything, it's going to temporarily flip that direction to then continue down to that level that we think it's going to go to. So we can mark these lows, but I wouldn't look at them. The real thing here is just the PDR anyway. So the two things I would look at is the high of the old range, and then the order block of the range. Here's the order block of the range, and then you also have this range here that held aggressively off of this range is higher, right here, which is actually something I'd look at over this, because this range here technically has been held right here. The high got held, no reason for it to come back down. This range here broke this high, so this is the range that's more likely to get traded to over this range. But our issue is our target's here. So even though I think this is going to hold more likely than this, I still believe we can come down to here, because this is the target I'm looking to get to. But I would be willing to take a long off of this, because this is the next thing to get traded to. So if we continue here, we'll get rid of this, we'll keep these two, we'll see what happens. Okay, coming down, I think this is our 15-minute level here. We'll mark that as green real quick, just so we know that's the one that we're looking at. This is the one I'm looking to hold. Even though I think price can get to here, I still think this is going to hold. First of all here, I would look at this low is holding. This is the next range in the cycle to hold. Highest fair value gap is here. We are not closing the midpoint of that. A ATT at 17 was created of that swing. We tested into the midpoint of the order block. I would have already tried this personally, been stopped at break even with this. Would have got in here, would have went down to here, would have been stopped at break even with this candle up. I wouldn't be mad if taking it again, or if you try to take it again. In theory, right, we close the higher, trading back to the order block, we could momentarily flip that direction. Bit of sideways movement. We do have the 2:30 session coming up as well in 5 minutes. So it's quite close to that session, so I would no longer try trading this, even though I think it was going to go down. If this wasn't 2:30, I would look at this to take. Why this? Because we didn't close this here. We've been moving sideways for a while. Failed the midpoint of this. Looks like we failed the midpoint. I wouldn't even look at this, to be honest, so actually I'm not going to say anything about that. Failed the midpoint inversion fair value gap. Or just a regular fair value gap, sorry. Bait range didn't really do much. Obviously the bait range is the first range you want to see hold to flip that direction. So if this wasn't 2:30, I would have tried this here, because if anything, right, it's gonna at least get to here, or the midpoint of here, before it goes up, because this is the order block. We did, in theory, close the higher for this order block, so this could still hold. So that's something I would have looked for if it wasn't 2:30. We got to exactly to our target here. Exactly to where we wanted it to go. We'll get rid of this. We'll get rid of this, and we'll get rid of this. So this is the next point that we think is going to flip the direction. Even though, like I keep saying, I think it can still potentially come down to here. There's no reason why it realistically has to come down to there. If, on the bigger picture, I know this is a daily level and this is a 15, but this is the next thing in play. In theory, this is the next thing. So there's generally no reason why it does have to come to here. But I'm still keeping it in my mind that it can. So, see if we can look for a trade in this range here. A long I'd be looking for. Another thing that you can look at to aid in your, in my bias, sorry, of it actually long in here, is we failed the low. We didn't close the low. Close the interior low, meaning flip direction up to here, which happened really fast in this candle to bring price back down momentarily to what can potentially be the order block to break price up. $32. This probably in your eyes looks like it's going to just plummet down, but in my eyes, swept this side. We can break this side. This is the order block. First thing I would personally have been looking at would have been this. Missed, unfortunately. That's something I would have gone for though. Does this mean we still can't get along? Obviously not. We've got nowhere. In the grand scheme of things, if this holds, it can bring us all the way back up to here. So we've got nowhere in the bigger picture. Cool. We trade back down to the order book. We didn't close the high. We created all these highs here though. We've got a bunch of highs that can be swept. These already went. So at some point these need a break. Time is 35. Wouldn't really say that I wouldn't go for a trade here, because this didn't close. It would have been 10 times better if this did close, because then the likelihood of this holding, if we close this, is a lot higher, because I'm so convinced on this being the next thing in the move, and we swept here and we need to break here, not create a high. I still think that this holding is still in play. I still think the longs are still in play, so I'd look at the midpoint of this candle here, potentially to hold, which it does. Stop loss here, highs here for 2, next high is at 311. So now we've broke here, we might be able to return back down to here. Have got to our target, 311. So our trail under this candle would have been stopped out for just under 311. Straight down to my where I thought it was going to go, being this order block. So what would I be doing here? I'll be looking for another long already. Traded down to our level, treating this as an ATT at 40. Don't need this on the screen anymore. Don't need this. So big wick, or you just go for the midpoint of the order block, which in my opinion, a lot of the times going for the midpoint of the wick, you normally get stopped. It normally misses you, doesn't trade to you. So I always personally rather go for just the midpoint of the whole candle. Stop loss of 10.5, and our next target in theory is here. Where's 3R? 3R is here. I always, if my target is a lot less than 3R, the only reason I'll get into a trade is if I think it has the potential to at least go 2+R, which I think this has a potential to go a lot higher than 1.76. So I would still take this, because it is a good trade. It is a really good trade. It's the next thing in line to hold. We think direction's up. We're holding here. We're cycling highs. We're breaking them. We're coming back to the order box to hold them. This held before this closed, meaning clearly the direction is what's in play here. The up direction is in play over the short, because if we're failing highs yet we're still holding that direction, this has a lot of strength behind it. Would have been lucky there not to get stopped at break even. That one tick away. Wait for that high to be closed. So this high got closed. Very interior high. Cause I got closed, that means this can hold. So if you wasn't in the trade already, this holding, you could start looking at things like this to hold. But that is quite aggressive because we failed here as well. The moment it moved up to here, I'd already be break even. So this trade here, I would already be out of. You kind of, if you're going that aggressive off of something like so interior like this range, the moment you get the chance to break even, you need to break even, because this didn't close, meaning we can come all the way back down to this order block. And also in this trade, I would also be here, because this is a low. So that would have stopped me out. Fair enough. And surprise, surprise, right? The next range in play is what's temporarily flipping that direction and stopping us from moving up. Trade down to our order block. Haven't even tested any of these lows. Still creating higher lows, higher highs. Yeah, we didn't close this or this, but I still think this has the potential to absolutely go up all the way up to here and higher, maybe. No longer looking at this as target because this is holding. So if we're already above this level and we're holding it nicely, even though we're not closing these highs, because I'm only looking at this as temporarily flip that direction, I'll start to look really interior here. And like I said, if we close this interior higher, for me this is enough to take a trade off of this order block. If you're not comfortable with that, and I'm sure you won't be right now, taking a trade off of some really tiny range here, even though you're not closing the bigger ranges, then don't. Just know you can take trades like this, and it is completely valid, and it's the type of trades that I take. I'll do something like this. Maybe because of the time, I'd have my stop loss here. $53 can be a swing, so I'll be keeping that in mind. So cool. Now I'll try here. Straight up. Next range we might get something a flipping direction off of would be this. This is gone on both sides now, no longer need that on our screen. Get rid of all that stuff. We think target's here, so I don't even think this is going to hold. Because of, look at these candles. You got candles like this probably isn't going to hold at all. And it doesn't hold at all. Big ass candle, I'm sure I'd try somewhere in like the 15-second because it's such a big candle. We're now above the exterior target, and if we've got to here now, that means our next target is here. Trade off of here. Maybe there's a PDR in between here we hold off of before we get up to here. Maybe this flips us back down to here before we get up to that level, so we'll get that on our screen. There we go. So this is my next target now. Show here now, if I wasn't already tried out in the 15, because we traded into this gap. We have a very interior range that could hold. Now we close this high, so I can trail to here. This is how you trail. Okay, now we've been trailed out for 7.35. Nice. Haven't got to this target yet. We closed this, we close this level here and this candle, meaning we can still come to here before we get to here. So I'm just watching this carefully. Never close the midpoint of the order block. If this isn't closing, then I don't see why we can't get to our target. So if that was the fact, once you got above this, you could have taken that up to here, but because the risk to reward is so low, I wouldn't take this. The risk to reward is probably less than 1.5R. But that's what I think we can get to. Cool, we got to that. Now we got to here. We close this row, but I'm not looking for this to hold anymore. So I'll be using this as a bait range once this closes, and this doesn't hold. This is keying me into price coming down to here again. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Cool. This is the old high. Don't really need it anymore. Also, this is an 82, 12. So if you was really convinced in this, it's gonna hold to take us down to here. You wouldn't care that this closed, and like I said, we're using this as a bait range anyway. You would just get into here. You would just get into the midpoint, going down to here, not even waiting for the bait range to hold. You're entering in the bait range because you're so convinced in the direction. So, let's look at this. Is this valid to take a short off of on the way back up? You might be looking at this and saying no, because we didn't close. But I'll be looking at this and going, okay, midpoint of the order book did absolutely nothing. Dropped below it so easily. Didn't even try and hold really. Comes down. I already think the direction is down. We closed this. This didn't hold. Looks like we swept here to go higher. But I'm looking at this as we close this high here. So we was always going to come down to here. So the direction from this point, when this point gets here, in my opinion, is down to here. The order block for that is here. We can come up to here before we go down. I'm only saying this because I think direction is down. So in any other case, if I thought we was going up and I saw this, I'd see this as, oh yeah, this is great, I can get here to break here. But because I think this is going to be holding us down to here, I'm looking at this and going, we don't need this to close. This doesn't need to close to solidify the direction is continuing down, or solidify the direction is down. I'm just saying this order book did nothing. We've hit the exterior target for this range. If this is the exterior target, this is the next target. So yes, let's see what happens here. I didn't mean to get rid of that. And just like that, breaks down. So I'll just walk through that one more time because I know it's pretty confusing on why I would actually try this, considering we didn't break this. My direction's down after we hit this. This closed and this didn't hold. So this getting swept means nothing because it didn't even try and hold. We broke below it. So this sweeping is nothing more than just bringing direction back up to here to then go down. It's quite a hard thing to train yourself to do because it's like, oh well, this clearly doesn't look like it's going to go down. If we just swapped here, we should get to here, right? But because I've seen this so many times where you hit a higher time frame level, and instead of breaking the range, you just sweep it. Because I've seen this so many times, it sweeps, comes up, goes down. Whereas if we broke as well, this is probably what you're looking for it to break, for this to hold. Whereas like I just said, because I've seen this happen so many times where the order block fails to hold, we get that direction, we flip back up. I think this is going to hold to take us down. It's probably still confusing, but I hope you kind of get a gist on why. I thought that was valid. Now we've got to the target. Already looking for longs. Yeah, just as fast as that. Already in this. Already in this. This is something I'd already be in. We failed the low. Low didn't hold. Was this random order block? Because the thing is, right, this would be the order block if we went down, because we have a range here. Why is this going to hold? This already took us down by holding price down. Failed to close, failed to close. This low, this low. Hit our exterior target, be in here. So the moment we get here, we're failing both of them. Big wick, clear sign of something trying to hold. I'd go for the midpoint of this candle. Would have got me in perfectly, and I'm trying to take that up to here now. And realistically, right, we should be able to get up to here. But I'll just be looking at this. I wouldn't have been stopped at here because it didn't really go that far. Yeah, maybe I would have got stopped out, but I would have just went for it again in this candle or this candle because it's the order block. Up. Just misses us. I am sure I would have got stopped out somewhere around this, which is quite a shame. Somewhere in that candle. Let's see if it goes up. It does not. Cool. So, looking at this as the finger flips direction down to here, right? This is the next thing you play, is this range, this order block. So if we fail that high, next thing in play is this order block. We could have traded this down to here. 2.4. That's not that bad. Take 2.4. Don't think it's a bad idea. Also as well, if we go back a couple of candles, look here. Look here. Low. High gets put in. There's a range here. Right, there's a little range. What do? We break the range. We haven't got to the lowest fair value gap. We haven't got to the order block. Why is this middle fair value gap going to hold? If this is the next thing in play, and direction normally flips it to the lowest fair value gap or the order block, why is this random fair value gap going to hold? A middle fair value gap doesn't mean anything. We get this swing up here. If we think direction can still take us down, we're looking for a swing up at 48 being the next minute, which could take us to here. Or just hold here, just go a bit higher, and then we can get the midpoint of this candle. Cool. And it goes. So I would like to go into the 15-minute time frame real quick to see what's happening. Go to here, cut it back. Okay, cool. Close to higher. So we can come down to here. Nothing's saying we can't come down to here. we go. Do we get there? By the looks of it, no. I wouldn't actually be convinced in any direction right now. Can go up, can go down. It's not holding. It's not doing what I like piece to piece wanted it to do. Come to here, maybe hold something here and then go up. We're holding nothing. Nothing's been held here. I'm sure there probably is, like a monthly or something, but all I have is this daily. So if that's all I have, I'm not going to react off of nothing. Okay, starts to look like direction is up now, right? Closed. No range here really, there's not really a high. No, there's not high. So this holding, in my opinion, it's just holding the daily. What can we look for though? If direction's starting to flip, we've not got to that order block yet. So there's no reason for direction to go down. Maybe we close here, we can get a trade off of here. Starting to close highs. Does look like that direction's going up. Like I said, we've not really traded into anything of real value other than the only fair value gap here being the inversion fair value gap. So maybe what we do here is we would wait for the midpoint of this to go. If this goes, then we can trade, we can get something off of it. And also, right, if we closed here, we can still come down to here. So maybe this holding is just bringing us to here. We also haven't got to the target being, well, I mean, this technically is the target, right? This and this. So I guess we have got to there. First sign of failure is this not closing. If that's not closing, I'm not taking this trade. I'm thinking we can come down to here. So I'd be looking to see what happens here. We do get to here on a swing. We're back above this daily now. Could have taken this. Things I wouldn't know because I'm not convinced on the direction, but I do think this will hold. At least, at the very least, we'll at least get to this, alright? So if you're in here, it shouldn't flip until it gets to here. So you do have quite a bit of time to decide if you want to break even. These closing and this holding is the sign of direction flipping, even though we didn't close this higher. This, if this is flipping direction, then this should only bring us down to this range, which is starting to move up. And actually, I would like to completely change everything I'm thinking right now, because I've just seen this is the next range to hold, right? We're holding that higher. Holding that higher. This range is holding. This already got tested into. This already got tested into. The next thing to hold is this range. We're holding that high here in this candle that we think is going to hold to bring price up. So if that's holding, then I don't see why you can't go for this. We should see this as nothing's going to happen off of this. Let's see if that theory is correct. And it is. And that's you just have to look. You look and the picture becomes clear. I missed this key piece of information being the next thing to hold. I was confused on where direction was until you look. You look clearly. You find what you need. This is the next thing to hold. What's telling you this is what's the next thing it needs to hold? We go to here. No reason why this should hold, even though it's the next thing to hold in the range. There's no reason why this needs to hold. What tells you it's holding is once we get to here, first high goes. If that high goes, and this is the order block that needs a hold for this to be kind of broke. If it to break this should hold, right? If this doesn't hold and we get to here, and this clearly means something to move that price up. So we get to this point, this didn't hold, this brought us to here. If this is the next thing to hold, which clearly looks like it is because of what's happening, it's the lowest range that hasn't been tested into all the way until like here. So if this doesn't hold, we could return all the way down to where we thought it would go at the start, being here. Obviously we held this. So go forward back to where we was. Now I'm looking at this completely different. Obviously it does break out. And from that moment forth, we go up to our initial target, being that PDR. That PDR should flip direction down. Could flip us down to what just broke us out, being here. So we could already look for shorts here. Sorry, here. To take us down. This tested in. High did not get closed. Traded to the exact price though. Didn't close it. We think this is the initial target. We're looking at this as sweeping these highs, potentially bring us down to here before we go higher. So why wouldn't I take this short? Why wouldn't you? Right, you've done the longs. We're now at the point where we can short down. We got to our target. And look, now we can see that we can clearly see. You can clearly see when direction flips because it's no longer going in one direction. It's slowly going in the other. We're closing. We're closing lows, closing lows, closing lows. Close this low. Retest it to the only fair value gap here. What I'd actually be looking at. This is the fair value gap of this range, right? This turns inversion. This tests into it perfectly. Here. Swept here. Like we swept here. This tests into it perfectly. Why is this candle not valid? This candle can break here now, right? What's wrong with this? There's generally nothing wrong with that at all. Straight down, breaks up. Now we're coming to those ranges that need to hold. This range never got retested to. We was holding the high. But what am I looking at? I'm now looking at this differently, as in, yeah, this is next range to hold. Why am I looking at it differently than I am this one here? Remember I was saying this is next one to hold. I think it will, even though my target is here. Well, this is a 15-minute range. It's got a lot more behind it. A lot more behind it. And I hit my exterior target, being here. Let's get rid of some of the stuff on the screen. And also, look how big this range was versus this random little range here. Random little range. And this held this, which was the next range in play. This held this. This was this is the next thing in the range to hold. This technically Didn't really, I guess you could bring it back to here. Yeah, you held the high. But like I just said, this is just a small little range. If we go back onto, if we can real quick, go into the 15 minute, or the 5 minute, this might paint a better picture for us. And it does. Look, it's the 15 minute order block, the midpoint of it. This is just a little bit of a higher range, which doesn't really mean anything. So if this is the 15 minute order block, this is the 1 minute order block. This here is just an in-between random range. It doesn't mean anything, this range. I'm not looking at that holding. This is the next thing in this trade to, meaning this daily is where well, like I said, this daily is where I think it's going to go to after this holding. So A to B, right? And we get there. We hold it. We don't hold the daily. Yeah, we can still trade to it. But we're holding it. Or the highest fair value gap being here. Let's just get rid of some of this stuff. I would have been stopped out of that short anyway by now. Can still trade down to it, and I still think you can. We closed this range. This should momentarily flip the direction down, at the very least to here. So, to the very least here, right? What's the R? The R is, if you go for the midpoint, which is normally where price does trade to, 2.6, I wouldn't be mad at taking that. Was it a swing? No, swing was to go up. Didn't close the high here. We got to where we needed to, and we didn't close the high. This is enough for me to say that price is at least flipping before we go higher. It does, and it goes further than we expected. I would have been stopped out already, probably around here with a 15-minute swing or something. Just looking to see if we can get any longs. Felt the high. This went nowhere. If I did go for a long after that short, I would have probably just been break even after this many minutes anyway. If not, negative 1R. Swept. Haven't got to. We can still potentially get to here. Now we've swept. We've swept here. This brought us down to here, meaning if this went, next target is here, right? Once we hit here, this gives us everything we need to get to here. Considering this is supposedly supposed to take us to here. Cool, we got it. And I did that a bit too fast. I would have tried to go for this anyway. What I was going to say is we didn't close the low. This low didn't close. We hit our exterior target. We're holding the order block where I thought it would trade to. We finally got to our target. What got us there was we swept here. If we're sweeping now, we should get to here. Right. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a lot to kind of take in. Just let me know if I'm moving too fast in these videos. I'll kind of take it down a notch. Just trying to tell you everything I look for and what I would be doing if I didn't move that so fast. If we look here, did we hit our target? Our target's here. First target's here. Midpoint of that order block is like here. My stop loss there. Probably would have got stopped out here. Got a 3.32. Close these highs. We think direction's up, right? So this was the next thing in play, this is momentarily going to flip direction down to here. So we could have took a short down to this and then took a long up. It's simple. Simple as A to B, A to B, A to B. Didn't close here, so I'm using this as a bait range because this could be the first sign of failure. And it is. That's why. Didn't close this, why is this going to hold? It's the first sign of failure to get back down to that daily again. And if we're failing to get back up to here and this does slip, well then our next target is down. So if this fails, we flip our direction to short now. And that's what you got to do. You have to keep flipping direction when you're supposed to, when it makes sense to. Okay. Was there anything to go off of, right? Looks like it's failing because it's closing all the lows, right? Bait range doesn't hold. This is the bait range. Doesn't hold, actually closes. So maybe we still have fuel to go up. So if this holds, then we can get the thing that holds off of it. It doesn't. And we do go down. So bait range didn't hold. Being the first range, you're looking to still hold after slipping this daily. If we are continuing down, bait range doesn't hold, which gives you fake hope because this closed and you're thinking, oh, okay, we can long. All it does is sweep and goes off, falls off cliff. So you always need to be cautious. If the longs are not looking like they're longing, which in my opinion, once we fail this, and then we fail this, the longs don't look good at all just because we closed one high. So where did it go? Slip this, went straight to the next level, like I said. Okay, I think I'm going to end that one now just because it is a long video. Maybe I'll continue the next video at the same time, just continue with the same day again.